Hey everybody, Mike Wardynski here from naturemike.com, and I know it's been a minute since we last spoke, but don't you worry, I've got a great video for you today. It's about pixel peeping. Now, pixel peeping gets a bad rap, and I'm not really sure why. Think about this for a minute. If you see a painter or a pencil artist drawing or painting, they're going to inspect their work because they want it to be as good as possible. So why, as a photographer, would you not want to inspect at the most detail your work? There's no reason not to. So I'm going to give you some great reasons to pixel peep in this video. So let's dive in. One reason to pixel peep is to check for sharpness, especially when you're photographing people, animals, or anything with an eye. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our image here, and right now you can see we're set to fit. And we're going to zoom into 100%, but actually I like to take it even a little bit further. If we click on these two arrows here, we can choose a number of options. I actually like to zoom into 200% when I'm checking for sharpness in an eye. This really allows you to see reflections and catch light and really see which image is going to be sharper. A lot of times when we're shooting wildlife or people, we're shooting in burst mode, so oftentimes we have a number of options to choose from. So don't just choose what you think is the best. Go ahead and zoom into the image and make sure it's the best. So right here I've got two photos of a grizzly bear. I'm going to zoom out here so we can see them side by side. I'm going to press the N key, and so here they are. And I know they're slightly different compositions, but the reason I chose these is because one of them is sharper than the other. Now, you can't tell which one is sharper just by looking at the full view here. So we're going to zoom in. So let's go ahead and choose this first one. I'm going to zoom into 200%. You can see there it is. And it looks pretty sharp, but I think it could be sharper. So let's look at the next image. And as we look at this, if we look in the reflections of the eye, the catch light there, you can see that the eyelashes are actually a little bit sharper. So that's one reason to pixel peep, is just to look for the sharpness. Another great reason to pixel peep is for noise. So we have a photo of a puma here that was taken in Patagonia, and as fit, you can't really see any noise. But as we zoom into 100%, the noise starts to become visible in the sky and in its eye, and watch what happens when we go into 200%. You can see this is very sort of noisy and kind of soft because of the noise, because this was taken at ISO 6400. So again, good reason to come in and pixel peep. We can go to detail, choose denoise, and Lightroom's going to do its thing. Now by default, Lightroom's going to go to 50% noise reduction. Sometimes I like to back this off to 25, 35, somewhere around there. Sometimes I keep it at 50. But in this image, I feel like it's starting to look just a little too soft and almost a little fakeish. So we're just going to pull this back maybe like 35 or so, and we'll call that good. Now, just because we've done the noise reduction doesn't mean that we should trust that the software did a perfect job. We are the artists, so we should be in control. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom around here, and this is really important when you have subjects that have or images that have a big bokeh, like it's very sharp and then it falls off to softness very quickly. A lot of times around the edges, you might notice some artifacts with denoise. So it's a good idea just to kind of come in here, do some pixel peeping, and just make sure that everything looks good. In this case, it did a good job, so we're okay. But don't just trust that the software did a perfect job, because a lot of times it might not. Another reason to pixel peep is to check your edits. When you're working with mask particularly, it's very important to pixel peep. You want to zoom in and make sure that your edits actually look good and that you're not creating artifacts or other weird things. And so here's a perfect example of a horse in Iceland, and this guy looks fine. Like, we look at this at the fit view, there's nothing wrong with it. But as we zoom in, let's go ahead and zoom into 200%. And just kind of look around here. This looks okay. And one thing you can do is, if you have a mask, is you can turn it on. So I do have a mask on this image, and we're going to turn that on and off, and you can kind of see. And now I'm noticing something here. I'm going to turn up on my navigator and just kind of move this around. If you look here, this hair looks really strange. something is happening from the mask that's causing this to kind of become sort of soft and not quite right. And if we can continue to look around, I'm going to hold the space bar and just kind of move around the edge. A little bit of chromatic aberration there, and that's not a huge deal. We could probably address that a little bit more later on. But as we come down here, you'll notice that sort of defect down here and also along the stomach. Now, when I click on this mask, all of my local adjustments are off with the exception of the tone adjustments. So I can turn these on and off like so. And you can see, it might be hard to see in the video, but when I turn those off, it actually gets rid of that softness. And let's come back up here. It might be easier to see up here. And turn it off. You can see, again, I'm fixing the problem. And we turn it back on, it's back. So there's a couple things we could do here. We could try and subtract from this mask, but the problem with that is it's not going to look natural most likely. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit a snapshot here, and we'll try and subtract with the brush. And I'm just gonna kind of brush this in. You can see why that doesn't work, because this horse was much darker and we're bringing the exposure up quite a bit more. So in order to fix this, what we would have to do is kind of create two different edits of this photo and then blend them with mask in Photoshop. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole masking tutorial here, but I just wanted to point out why you need to pixel peep and why it's important. Now, again, you're not going to do this to every photo, but your best photos, you should do it to. If you just want a simple photo you're going to mail to a friend or family member, or maybe it's only going on social media and you didn't really want to put too much effort into the photo, you just do a quick edit, that's fine. But if you're doing fine art photography, you should pay attention and you should pixel peep. Because you might even say to yourself, well, I'm never going to make this large. But what happens when somebody sees it on Instagram, or somebody comes over to your house and sees an 8x10 and says, hey, can you make a 40x60 of that? And you're like, yeah, I can. And without even thinking about it, you go to the file and you print it, and then you get it back. And then you realize, once you see it at 40x60, like, oh man, I have these terrible artifacts in the photo. So that's why we're pixel peeping. Let me show you one more example. And this is a real life example that actually escaped me until I decided to go back in and pixel peep. So here's an image of an elephant. Let's zoom out here. There it is. This is in Kenya, and it's a nice looking photo. It's a great looking photo, and somebody asked me for a large print, and I decided that before I make that print, I should probably go back and just do a little bit of inspecting just to make sure things are looking good. And as I zoomed around the image here, let's zoom in. It looked pretty good up here, came down here, and this is where I noticed some problems. If you look on the edge of the elephant, you can see there's this sort of bit of a halo here. And then on the edge of the tusk, this was a mask gone wrong, where I added a mask, but obviously didn't catch all the tusk. So this part of the tusk is much darker than everything else. And there's also just a couple little artifacts here as well. So I just went into Photoshop and touched this up really quickly with a clone stamp. And let me show you those results here. And you can see this looks a lot cleaner. So again, I go back to the other one. There it is. I'll hit tab so you can see everything. Minor adjustments. And I also cleaned up a few little adjustments, or a few little spots that were on the elephant's leg. I turned that back on. And these were not major things. I don't think they really take away from the photo, but I kind of saw them and they caught my eye, so I decided I'd clean those up as well. So there you have it. That's why you should pixel peep. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you find this useful. And if you did, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.